episode 8. 2 more episodes left in the season. That's pretty crazy. We got Kalen Washington, a writer in the building.
What's up?
I was excited to get him in here to grab a little bit of a different perspective. We've had a lot of entrepreneurs, artists, even an influencer. But I wanted to kind of grab this guy and see what he could say about some writing. So what's up, man? Tell us about you.
Okay, yeah, sure. So Kalen Washington, graduated from Messiah College in 2015 with a degree in psychology and a minor in peace and conflict studies. Nice. So, since graduating, I've been doing a lot of work with kids, from counseling to teaching to coaching, and actually, I was in California for the last couple months, up until I want to say kind of like the summer.
Okay.
And I was working at a camp and conference center there, and so
wow.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of different things. So
cool.
I like to do a lot of different things. My interests are like all over the place.
Which is cool. I mean, it gives you a lot of opportunities.
Oh yeah, I love meeting people. I love talking to different people, getting different perspectives, and that was one of the biggest things that drew me to like writing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, I've just to kind of get into how I got into writing.
Yeah.
I pretty much decided one day that was the thing I wanted to focus on and do.
Wow.
Because I have a lot of thoughts and I have a lot of notes, and I was like, man, I'm taking all these notes and I'm doing all this stuff, and why am I not, doing something to get paid for it?
Yeah, I feel that.
So, I just started diving into, how to write, how to get into it, and kind of using the same approach that I would in teaching technique in wrestling, or, in some of the other things I've gotten to do to myself for writing. So
nice.
Discipline. It's worked out so far pretty well. I've gotten some stuff out. I have an internship with Rapzilla.com, so they're like
nice.
the number one like Christian hip hop like resource, and done some work for a couple other different sites and blogs and stuff. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you're on your way, dude.
It's like, oh, hey, like this. It's only been a couple months, but like it's going along. So
because you don't have a degree in writing.
No, I don't.
Yeah. So how long ago did this journey really start for you?
I started taking it seriously right around January. I was actually just leaving. I was leaving Los Angeles because my girlfriend lives out there.
Gotcha.
I've been spending time between here and California.
Yeah. It's a big trip.
It's fun. It's fun, especially the dead of winter. Like
you head out there. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
But so I kind of took it serious. I was like, all right, this is something that I can do, and something that if I'm going to do, I should probably do now. And so I really enjoy getting into topics that have to do with like productivity and like understanding your mind, understanding yourself.
Right. It's the psychology in you.
Yeah, that's kind of where that comes from. I love like just diving deep into something, and like if you were to like look at like the way that I write, I just kind of like take all these thoughts and I throw all these thoughts in, and then I'm like, all right, now let's make this make sense for someone else.
Gotcha.
I guess that's kind of the psychology, is just understanding how to take information from one brain to another. What does it take to get whatever ideas are in your head out for other people, and without getting like super super deep. A lot of the different experiences that I had in college, especially being a black male on a wrestling team, wrestling isn't what you would consider a black sport,
right?
And so there were a lot of different conversations that that came up. Where you have individuals just going to you like you're that person, who's the kind of the authority on all things African American. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of space for frustration, but also for compassion, right?
Yeah.
And also just understanding, okay, there are some people who just haven't had certain experiences.
Yeah.
So how do you help someone understand certain things?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's kind of like, okay, like how do you do that on a larger scale?
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I'm like, all right, written word, that's a part of it. So I'm looking to get into like writing books and other kind of things. But I want to start small, start with blogs, start with articles, start with that, and just continue to build into those things.
Gotcha. Yeah, you did seem like somebody who would progress into books.
I
I
talk
mean,
too much.
I mean, I'm assuming relatively fast. Like, not yeah, obviously, tomorrow, but I mean, you seem like
Maybe.
somebody that's your trajectory because that's where your passion is.
Yeah.
You're obviously a good writer, and you've been getting
Thank you.
you've been
Thank you.
you've
Thank
been
you.
getting
Appreciate
gigs, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
Okay, so who are some of the people that you've been able to write for so far?
Yeah. So aside from Rapzilla, Rapzilla New H2O, that's another like Christian hip hop outlet. It's kind of like the niche that I've been focusing on. It's like hip hop,
Good.
Christian, and like anything like that. A lot of the stuff I've been doing has been like free, until
Yeah.
recently. So yeah, I just kind of hit people up, and like if I
Yeah.
see something that looks cool, or I see like
Yeah.
a blog or something, I'm like, oh, I like that. I'll say, hey, I'm a writer. I write stuff. Here's a sample. Tell me what you think. Or give me a subject that you would want someone to write about, and I give them that, and usually I get a pretty good response from that. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, you're just marketing yourself. That's what it sounds like. I mean, that's what you got to do. That's some Gary Vee stuff. You know what I mean? That's basically what he says to do. Just hit up everybody, show them
Yeah.
a sample, and then
Oh,
see what
man.
happens.
What's so crazy to me is that like there are so many people who, I talk to a lot of different people who, are trying to find gigs or trying to find work, or trying to find this, trying to find that, and sometimes you just have to, say, hey, I'll do this for free, or hey, I'll do this, and if you like it, then pay for it. If
Yeah.
you don't worry, don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go.
But you're
for
putting
it.
yourself out there.
Oh, yeah.
That's the biggest key.
Yeah.
I think it's
Shoot
the
your
biggest key
shot.
in all
Shoot your
this.
shot. Like, go for it.
For real. Like, you only have one life. And I
Yeah.
think in writing, being like a low-key writer. I call myself a low-key writer
Okay,
because
yeah.
people don't really know that I write,
Mhm.
but people know that I write. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something that I necessarily hide, but like none of my work
not
is
like the
public.
right thing.
Yeah, none of my work is really public, and it had like I think the last time I released a piece was maybe like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of writing because I'm building. Like I've already started writing different parts of books that I want to release
Oh, yeah.
because that's how my mind works. I'm like, okay, today I feel like writing this book.
Yeah.
Um,
Relate to that. Yeah.
yeah, but I've done a lot of poetry work, and that's actually the most that anybody has seen from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is kind of just this hard mentality thing with writing where it's like, how much of myself do I put out there?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, because writing is also personal.
Oh,
like a
man,
lot of the
yeah.
time, it's super personal. My poetry is super personal, and like people have told me to like open up pages and things like that, and I was like, I'm not really sure that I want to focus on writing, but also I don't know if I just don't want to put myself out
Yeah.
there like that.
Well, I mean, Ernest Hemingway. There's a quote that I'm probably gonna butcher, but I'm gonna give it my best at.
Yeah.
And it goes something along the lines of, writing is easy. You just sit at. I think he said like a typewriter, but you sit
Yeah.
at a computer.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
And and bleed. Right?
Yeah.
It's super.
It's
personal.
super true.
It's super personal. And
Yeah.
I think like, for me, a lot of the stuff that I've been writing hasn't been personal yet.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm like mostly doing
Building.
things for other people. Right.
Yeah.
The stuff that I have for the topics that I want to get into, man, I'm like, all right. Once this is out there, it's out there. Like once it's there, it's
Yeah.
there.
That's
But also
true.
look at it like there's some people out there who are going through or have gone through things I've gone through.
Mhm.
There are people who have been in bad relationships or have gone through and
Yeah.
experienced racism or dealt with this or that, and maybe my story or my this or my that might help them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
that's true.
like while there is that fear, at the same time there's also that I feel like personally like I have a
Yeah.
responsibility to do something for them because I have that.
Yeah.
So if it can help, hey, why not?
True.
Like if you have a light in you, like why not let that shine? Right?
Yeah. For real.
It's the only way
I
the world
feel
gets
that.
brighter.
Yeah. I like that. So, talking about your college experiencing, and it seems like racism is something that you definitely want to talk
Woo-wee.
about. Like, what's your goal there? I mean, like, talk a little bit about your experience there, and then like also what you want to get out of your work being around race. Because I do a lot of work around race, so
Man, I don't know how much I want to say. So, a good bit of my experience at college. I went to Messiah College, private college, private Christian college, Central PA, and born and raised in Harrisburg.
That's it.
Lived in Illinois for a little bit, but mostly Harrisburg. And when I first got there, I was probably one of, let me see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there might have been 5 other. There might have been 5 other, including international students, black students. And the numbers it's definitely gotten better since.
Yeah.
It's gotten better since. But there were a lot of the a lot of the day-to-day, even just getting confused with other people, right? A lot of those little things, right?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, this person, that person, hey, Evan, Devin, people who didn't go to the school, people who graduated.
Yeah.
In class, when something would happen, if someone was reading, about slavery or this or that, they all look at you, right?
Yeah.
Like those kind of little things, but also other things. And on, even on the wrestling team, like the head coach, I think he was one of the best examples of being intentional about creating a space that was safe for, people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super thankful for that. Like, just the talks in his office and different conversations that we had as far as going through stuff. But there was just a lot of ignorance, I would say, that I dealt with. Even little things like people with their Confederate flags and whatnot, not seeing how or why I was uncomfortable with that. And just having those, getting into those kind of conversations again, getting those kind of things. Like, when I look back on it, I'm thankful that I went through it because it's given me a different perspective. And I'm like, okay, if I grew up the same way that they did with their experience, chances are I would think the way that they do.
Yeah.
And so rather than approaching racism or approaching, ignorance, because there's a difference between, people who are trying to, cause you harm. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to deal with that differently.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You have to approach that differently. You have to,
very
you have to take care of
differently.
yourself. You have to, protect yourself.
Yeah.
But for individuals who are, just ignorant, like they just don't know, they don't have that experience. You have to understand. You have to have a little bit of grace, a little bit of compassion. Like you can't just raise
ram them over.
Like you can't just bring all that. You have to we have to have a conversation. We have to talk through a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I found that although that wasn't my position, there were a lot of those conversations that would happen. Just late night. Well, why do black people do this? Or I had someone tell me on the wrestling team. Someone tell me that you're pretty good, but you're good because you're black. Black people are athletic. I'm like, do I not bleed? Do I not put in this extra work? Am I not doing the same runs and the same workouts that you're doing?
Yeah.
Even just other comments, about other things that I probably shouldn't say, but just like there are a lot of different things that people are ignorant about.
Yeah.
That they just don't know, and they seem kind of silly. They might seem silly to me or to you or to other people of color, but to someone who has never been exposed to large groups of people of color or just any minorities at all, they have a lot of different thoughts that they're like, okay, maybe I should ask them this thing that is probably not a good idea, but I'm not gonna really think it through.
Yeah.
A lot of fun conversations. So
yeah, that thought process is always interesting to me. That's part of what I do, as my job. I let people ask me those questions, and then I get paid for it, which is a different dynamic.
That's the way to do it, though.
Which is a different dynamic.
Yeah.
But I also remember experiencing it as a college student,
and
that's different than it is now. Now I've spent, the better part of 3 years studying race and studying conversations and being intentional and have lived in the hood. I've lived in rough hoods in Atlanta and gone to both extremes from growing up in a white family. But it does, and I think a lot of black college students who go to PWIs experience the same thing where you become the race therapist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the person who they come to when, something they saw on the news is a little bit hard for them.
Yeah.
I get phone calls all the time, especially now that people know that they can do it. The Jussie Smollett thing, the minute that get aired, within 5 minutes, I got a phone call. That's just how my life goes. But I also remember in college, sitting in a classroom, and the teacher in my English class was like, let's talk about, trending issues. Let's look on CNN.com. And, somebody chose Kaepernick. And I remember that feeling. And I remember I put my head down in my desk. I was like, I don't want to talk about this. And of course, when nobody raised their hand, the teacher called on me. I remember having those experiences as well. And I think it's awkward because it's not every black person's job to educate white people.
Yeah.
And then you also run the hard part of like, well, then how do we get things accomplished?
Yeah. It's like if I don't, then who will?
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Like not like there isn't enough online that they could be doing,
Oh yeah.
but also like nobody can deny the community effect.
Yeah.
So
Gosh, yeah.
when we live in community with each other and we're having conversations and we're being vulnerable with each other, nobody can deny that has a much bigger impact than even a video. And so that's always been the hardest thing, especially before I opened the firm and before that's who I almost marketed myself to be. That was the complex, like how much of this do I allow and how much of this is actually making me uncomfortable and how much of this is like okay. And then after it became my job, it was like, okay, how do I do this in a way that doesn't give like white people like this like instant scapegoat to where they're like, oh, I'm confused about this racial issues, let me call Isaac and I'll just believe whatever he says, but lets them like actually comprehend and study and go into further discussion, and it actually changes the way that they view the world. And that's like a longer academic journey. That's like putting some responsibility back on somebody else, and that's hard to, I think, to do in a college setting, is like trying to like portray that like I can tell you about my experience and that should make you empathetic. But you have a responsibility past this.
Actually, that reminds me of actually there was a story that a friend of mine was telling me, and you know, this guy's white, love him, one of the people that like we got along great, and except when we were like practicing with each other, then it was violence. But he was out in, I think it was like Wyoming, I think it was, and he was and we would talk about like, you know, race and just a whole lot of different things. You know, he's from like Juniata, I think it is, like way out there, way out in the sticks. And he was telling me about how, you know, he was out at, I'm trying to remember where it was, but he was out in Wyoming somewhere, just out like out in the out there. You know, the places out that we don't go. And and he was on for some kind of job related thing. He was on a reservation. And he's on a Native American reservation, and he was there. And then he was like, you know, he told me about how he remembered just feeling like eyes were on him the entire time. And they were at some kind of establishment, like some kind of restaurant or store or something like that. And every single person there is like watching him, and they're all just like mean mugging him. He can like feel, you know, like the anger, and he knows why. He knows why, but he's like, I didn't do anything. And then he said, you know what? That moment stuck with me, and I felt like I needed to talk to you about that, because I was like, okay, I don't get all of it, but I get it. Yeah. Like, man, this is what Kaylin is going through. Like, you know, all the time. Well, maybe not all the time, but like, you know, this
a
is
lot of the time.
Like, this is something that Kaylin, other people of color are going through. And he was just like, that makes sense. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay. Like, we got one.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a beginning base.
Like, man, like that, just like stories like that, you know, when friends of mine would like share stories like that, I was like, okay, we're doing some good here, you know, we're doing some good here.
Yeah, and I think that's true. You take the little victories as well as the big victories. I love this lady named Tanae here who owns a consulting firm, and she gives some talks, and she always says this process is not linear. And it's just not. It has its ups and downs, and we grow, and we have our fights, and we come back. And I got hired this week to work at a church for diversity, and the pastor, before I left, he was like, hey, I just want to warn you, like, you know, some members of the church, you know, this might get a little bit heated. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah.
I was like, the truth is that we actually need to get that, because we need to figure out what's underneath that. And once we get to what's underneath that, then we're actually making progress. Oh, yeah. And so... yeah, I like that that you've been able to do some of those things, and that's your experience. How do you want some of these things to translate into writing?
Oh, man, these are topics that I really want to get into, and just really be able to empower, I would say, you know, both sides. So for the Kaylins, you know, or the whoever else is out there who have gone through and dealt with just ignorance.
Yeah.
Right. And just give them something that says, okay, one, you're gonna be okay. Yeah. Two, here's a couple things that you should remember. You know, like it's not all your responsibility. You know, you don't have to do it all. And if you are gonna do it, you know, do it right and get paid. Like,
yeah.
you know, like, get paid. Like,
That's literally what I thought. I was like, if I'm really gonna do this, I should really figure out how to make money.
honestly, like it's a whole, because it's not, it's not your responsibility to,
Yeah.
to convince someone that maybe they shouldn't hate people who don't look like them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, also on the other hand, to also say, okay, like maybe they just need to see that not everyone is, what they see on TV, or what they've, read about.
Yeah.
Everyone isn't a headline; they're a person.
Yeah. Exactly.
And when you treat people like people, good things happen.
I mean, that's exactly the truth. I mean, we have to be able to look at people like people. And understand that, we all come with our own brokenness and our own flaws and our own issues and those kinds of things. And a lot of times I feel like that's overlooked. Like when we're talking about racial issues, it's like, yeah, we see that, but we only see that. We only see their flaws. We only see their side. Yeah. We can't own our own humanity.
Attribution error. Like,
yeah.
It's like, like when you're driving, everyone else is crazy on the road, but never you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that kind of like self-awareness. Like,
exactly. And if we can't own our part in everything, we can't get anywhere. That's just the truth.
It right
like
there. That's it right
we have
there.
to own. All of us have to own our part in the problem to get anywhere, which is really crazy to think about. I think because I think a lot of people don't really think about it that way. I think it's easier for everybody, no matter what the situation is, race or not, to just really like throw. It's always on the other side, and I think this happens in relationships a ton. I think more than I think. I think more than anywhere this actually happens in relationships, because we could talk about race all day, but in relationships, when I think about my own relationships in the past, and even like the one that's gone really, really bad, I have to really own my part in that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We can't. It's never really just the other person. We have to own our part in all things, in all sides. And romance is complicated.
Come on, preach now.
Yeah, it just is. Like, sometimes you're really in love for a good 6 months, and sometimes you're really not the next day. And sometimes that's not like you just have to try harder. Sometimes that means you actually have to walk away. Yeah. But you have to own your part in that heartbreak.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude. Okay, so we're there now.
Yeah, I'm with it.
So what about for you? Because we did talk about romance earlier, and some of your own experiences with that idea, and also with your writing. Like, does that come through in your writing? Are you going to release the next romantic novel?
That's probably not like.
Or are you going to write about the psychology side of it?
I think I'm more interested in writing about the psychology of it. I'm more interested in writing about the like the little things that people do. Even, for example, like if you think that your relationship isn't going to work out, more often than not, you're going to start sabotaging it.
Yeah.
And like, for me, there was a point that in one of the relationships that just did not, just was not healthy. College relationship, and just wasn't. Just a lot of reasons
sometimes.
Why. Yeah. It just, I have a lot of material, from that experience. So I'm thankful for it. But there was, there's just so much. I think that for, especially for, us trying to, do better and do more, right? We have to understand that the people that we reach and the people that we affect, whether romantically or not, are, they're paying attention and are watching what we do.
Yeah.
And the little things that we do, the little things that we think, they're not paying attention to, the little things, the little, messages or the text or this or that, the little things, how we treat them around other people, if we show them off or this or that, the little things, those little things add up.
Yeah.
Those little things, they don't just go away.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times, we expect to just be in love, right?
Yeah.
Like it just hits and boom, we're there. But we don't think about the little things that it takes to build up to that.
Exactly. I've actually been thinking about that a lot recently.
Yeah, like even my my current girlfriend, she's fantastic human being, and there was a point that just because I was doing so many other things, I wasn't doing some of the things that that I had been doing in the beginning of our relationship, and we're long distance, which is a lot. It's a lot, and the biggest thing I've learned in this relationship is about intentionality. Right?
Yeah.
And she called me out on something. She said, this thing and that thing that you used to do, you know, you haven't done that. And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, so do I shrink away from that, or you know, do I say, oh well, you know, you're not doing this thing, right? Or do I say, okay, no, you're right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do something about that.
Yeah.
Right. Like you got to own up. You got to say, all right, like I'm not doing this, or I am doing that. You know?
Yeah.
It's just,
no, you're right. We're gonna take a quick break and then I'm gonna respond to this. We are back. Yeah, I think you said something pretty powerful, especially when you were talking about, you know, those little things. And I think also, especially in like our, and maybe not even just our generation, I think like that phrase gets taken out of terms sometimes, but like I think because of our human nature more than anything, when we feel an emotion, we want to jump on an emotion rather than understand that like emotions change and emotions sway and there's this process where I think we have to go through, like if we actually decide that we want to do life with somebody in a romantic sense, like it's going to be way easier to say all the right things than to actually do and commit to that process. Yeah. It's going to be way easier like to be after a week say I love you and get everybody all hype and excited than to actually show that person that you love them. Yeah. And that's a whole different game. It just is. Like when you're dedicated to showing somebody and committing to somebody and actually being like, okay, I decided and we feel these emotions for each other and I know for a fact that like I do want to be with you, then can you actually show the commitment to that process? Yeah. Because that's a different thing. Yeah. And that doesn't mean like you're in a super serious relationship. That just means you actually value that person's time. And this is not just like another thing for you to like put on your checklist. Like, okay, I just dated that person again, you know, relationship number 17 is finally over with. And I think that's the thing. I'm okay with casual dating and I'm okay with those things. Yeah. But like, if you actually choose to be with somebody, then you should live into that commitment. Yeah. And I think I haven't always been the best about that. And so that's been something that I've been intentional about, especially over the past, like, I think 6 months, especially probably since like September-ish, like just going through that self-awareness process to say like, okay, if I'm wanting to move into that space, then like there's a bigger process than just being like, who's the girl that I like enough to date like that. There's a commitment to that growth. And Andy Stanley has always been one of my favorite people on this. Okay. And have you ever read any of his books?
I have not.
Or heard any of it? He wrote this book called Love, Sex, and Dating, and it was written from the perspective to where like really anybody could read it. It had Christian themes throughout it, but it was really written for like a large audience. And I've read a ton of dating books and a ton of psychology of dating books. Just because that's always been an interesting topic to me. And it's by far the best dating book that I've ever read. Yeah. Just like the way that he goes through the different styles of commitment, and his line is like, commit to becoming the person that you want to date. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like commit to that process, not the whole like search committee process, which we all commit to way faster. And another book that I read that because I'm doing a talk next week at Millersville actually on relational vulnerability. And another book that I read a long time ago, probably my freshman year of college, so probably like 3 or 4 years ago, it was called Men on My Couch. And you would love this book. And it is on love, sex, and psychotherapy. So she's a therapist who's basically like a sex therapist. But what she does is she had these men who came in and were like, hey, I'm super in love with my wife, but I love prostitutes. And, like, I really love my wife, and I don't know why I keep, like, going and, like, you know.
I would be interested in that.
Buying. Yeah. And she, like, does this, like, psychoanalysis breakdown, and it goes through, like, her whole process of talking to these men about, like, why they say they're, like, committed to this person, but they can't stop cheating or porn or prostitution, like, all these stuff. And it's really crazy to hear and see all the ideas behind, like, us not preparing for that commitment. Because, like, at the end of the day, Love, Sex, and Dating and that book actually said the exact same thing. Yeah. Like, they were literally like, you didn't prepare for this. You jumped in. It was emotional.
Oh, man, yeah.
And what happened was the emotion that you felt stopped being as fiery because that's what happens over time. And instead of, like, committing to an under process, you thought you thought you needed, because that part wasn't exciting anymore, you needed to go substitute. And so it was really crazy to me when I was doing that research, because because I was like, I'm reading a ton of different books, and like essentially they're all saying the same thing, which is that we never prepare to love people well.
Yeah.
And so for me, then it became a process of like, how do I love everyone well, not just the person that I want to like me back.
Yeah.
And how do we step into a place where everybody we're coming into contact with is like, that person seems like they genuinely care about me.
Yeah.
So that, you know, I think that's also important. We don't do that. We don't do that as a community, as a society. We don't actually choose to thank or appreciate anybody around us that we don't want something from.
Yeah.
Which is super confusing to me because everybody wants something, but they don't think about like the little people that it takes to get everywhere. So yeah,
you're getting some like good stuff.
Yeah,
right here,
that's a lot of my writing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I've written about the effects of like hookup culture and what it meant to have like a lot of women come out to me about sexual abuse in their life.
Yeah.
Like what that did to my perception of those things.
Yeah.
That changes
you can't approach people the same way after that.
Yeah.
You know.
That changes you when you hear about it. Like I had guy friends come out to me about it.
Yeah.
My first area of advocacy work, what actually got me into social justice work, was actually that kind of work.
Yeah.
I was doing like sexual abuse advocacy work and going to human trafficking conferences and things like that. And it's really crazy because we don't take a lot of those things into account when we're flirting and you know being these people. We don't account for trauma. And then on the cross end, we expect people to account for our trauma.
Yeah.
And like you could take that to race, you could take that to anywhere. Is that we are always expecting something that we're not willing to give.
That's a word right there.
Yeah.
That's a word right there.
That's what it has come to for me. Like, how do I live it out?
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously like I fail. Like we all fail in that aspect because we're human.
Yeah.
But I think like, especially after I started like being like, okay, race is what I'm going to talk about, and that's where my career is going to be, and that's probably where most of my life is going to be. And I know that there's these other areas that I care about in social justice, but how do I walk it out?
Yeah.
Because if I say that I want equality, that means that I have to live out equality.
Yeah, that's the whole thing right there.
Yeah,
it starts with one.
Yeah, exactly.
It starts with you. Like,
yeah.
You know, Michael Jackson said it best. Like, you know, like if you want to make the world a better place, take a look in the mirror and make a change. Like,
exactly.
It really takes that though.
Yeah.
It's like when you make a change and someone else makes a change. Like, oh, now there's two people.
That collaboration.
Now
yeah.
that 2 becomes 4, and that 4 becomes 8, and it continues to multiply.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
And I think that's the most. I think that like discipleship kind of side of things, like going and creating people and influencing young people to be that way. Like that's such a big deal because we have so many negatives in our culture. I think that are sold to us as positives.
Yeah.
One of the biggest areas that I put in my talk for next week was like the hookup culture ideal that like you can just like sleep with somebody and then like ghost them or not care about that point, and that's like seen as like this like positive thing, like in rap song girls say it and in rap song guys say it. And then I'm like, I don't have anything wrong with like hookup culture if that's truly how you feel about that kind of activity, but you're saying when you do that you don't respect somebody else's view of that, so you're just gonna shove yours, and then when that happens to you, you're hurt about it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We don't think about it like that. We're like, okay, at the moment, this is what I wanted out of that experience, so I'm gonna give it to you like this. And then when it happens to us, we're like crying victim.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Like, if you can't account for your own boundaries and then respect somebody else's boundaries, you're gonna hurt yourself. And I think that the way that has been like popularized through culture is like really damaging to a lot of young people who are trying to explore themselves, whether romantically, sexually, all these things, because they can't actually experience the things in an actually healthy manner. Yeah. Because culture's like, it doesn't really matter how that other person feels. Just do whatever you feel.
Exactly that.
But you got to realize that's exactly how the other person is thinking.
Yeah.
And it sucks. I think it's terrible how far we've gotten away from actually caring about people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's almost like compassion is a lost art.
Yeah, and it's super strange, too. Because then there's, like, the other side of these people who, like, if you go to like a poetry slam night at a college, there's like all these really emotional pieces. Or if you talk to people one-on-one, they're like, hey, this something happened that really bothered me. And you get underneath it and they're like, you're like, but weren't you just, and like, it's just so interesting. You know, you have to find that. I found that hypocrisy inside of myself.
Oh man, yeah.
I was there
Absolutely.
myself. I was like, wait a minute. If I'm not telling the full truth, and then I'm getting what I'm giving.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was that process. I'm getting what I'm giving. And I think that's what happens in life. We get what we give.
Yeah. Oh man. Even in relationships, just like to to bring it back to that for a second, like, there was a point that I had to, that I realized, like, maybe I'm not, maybe it's not, all this person. Maybe it is me. Maybe there are some things that I'm doing to cause these things, or to, if everyone I'm dating is like this, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm doing things to bring that out. Maybe I'm doing things to, to cause those people to respond that way.
Yeah.
And like outside of dating, and even just in, in friendships, it's like, okay, maybe, I'm doing things that are causing other people to respond to me in this way.
Yep.
Right. Like, man, that's
if you find a pattern, you better be looking inward first.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely
for sure.
that.
Because if you're the common denominator, chances are that you're the problem.
Yeah, absolutely that.
So yeah, dude, it's a crazy world. I think I was actually saying this to my girlfriend last night. I said that the book that I've always wanted to write but never have and don't really know why was called Letters to My Exes. And it was supposed, like, I had it actually mapped out. It's supposed to be this like 30-page book in which I went through and was talking about all the things that I learned versus all the like badness. Or I think it's very easy for us to look at our exes as like these bad people. But I can think distinctly of all these very great positive sides that have come out of every single one of my relationship. So the goal was to like obviously do like an overall of like the whole thing, but to also talk so greatly about like, because I'm part of who I am today is thanks to this person.
That part,
and to like actually be like, okay, let's also understand that even if things ended bad, like if you're dating somebody, you should be like learning and growing from it. And if you're not, that's a different conversation you need to have with yourself. So that's cool, man. Is there anything right now that you're working on?
Actually, I'm working on a couple different projects. One of them is about kind of some of the stuff that we talked about, which is kind of like interpersonal development. And I prefer to like do things first and then kind of talk about it a little bit more. But,
okay.
That's one of the projects I'm working on. It's like kind of a shorter ebook. And,
nice.
I want to do a series on a couple different topics, kind of just like breaking down like the art and the science of particular things. So talking about it from that scientific side, that like here's the data, here's the the this and the that and the that, and then also talking about the art, how it feels, how it looks,
really?
And kind of like looking at the creatives, the entrepreneurs, the people who are out doing really cool things. So
that's awesome, dude.
Like I'm like I love getting into that kind of stuff, and I'm also like, okay, let me actually do it, and then talk a little bit more about it. So
okay, so in terms of like your work to writing life, so you're not a full-time writer yet, correct?
No.
Okay, so you're working. Sorry, where?
So I'm working for Rapzilla. Oh, I'm sorry, like my non-writing work.
Like your non-writing work, like.
Okay, yeah.
So what else are you doing, kind of along with this?
So I try to do whatever whenever I get opportunities to to work, or I try to do whatever I can. But I'm working for a nonprofit organization, so events coordinator. But I also do other things that have nothing to do with that. So
as happens at nonprofits
it's
all
like,
the time.
I'm used to it. When I was at the previous organization I was at, I was an intern, but I was also a host, and I was also an RA, and I was also counselor, and I also did adventure, which was really cool. Like I got to do like belaying and like rope courses and all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So,
but nonprofits have a way of giving you one job and then also 50 others.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So
I'm cool with it. So
I've
I've helped out, done stuff with their website, so I've gotten to learn a little bit more. Cool. Of like the CSS and coding and other stuff like that. So I'm
trying to learn coding, dude. I really want to know some basic coding because I've done all my own web design work because nobody was paying $1,000. Let me just say that.
Yeah, no, that's not a nah.
So I spent like 2-3 months learning how to use Squarespace like a pro. And now I've been paid to build like 2 more websites, which is awesome because I'm not a graphic designer. I just know how to use Squarespace like super well. But that's like an awesome skill to have. If you can build a website, you're set.
Well, low-key, there's one called Bookmark, and it's like it's kind of like AI engineered, and so it just makes it super easy. And you pretty much just change some of the copy. You know, you add your own photos and this is and that. It has like access to like a whole bunch of like stock photos and all that kind of stuff. So it makes it super easy.
That's super
to, like,
nice.
Get a website like just like that.
I mean, that's how you do it. Are we gonna see like a Kalen writing page, or is there already a Kalen writing page?
There is a Kalen writing page.
Okay.
So KalenWash.work.
Gotcha.
That's kind of like my hub, and I'm just kind of there's a lot of different things that I want to do, but I'm going to put my work on and through that site and just start publishing stuff there.
And so if we go there, like I'll put the link up there, but like if we go there, what exactly are we gonna find right now? Is it like Repzilla kind of stuff, or do you have independent work yet, or?
Yeah, it's more just kind of like a, hey, this is me. I write.
Nice.
This is what I do.
Oh, so like a portfolio.
Yeah, pretty much a portfolio.
Nice, cool.
Yeah,
so we can just find out more about you through that.
Pretty much.
Okay.
But you can also just hit me up. Hit me up on my Insta.
Your Insta's mad funny.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that I want to get into and stuff that I want to do, and use writing as a skill to support all those different things.
Which
writing
is good.
is one thing, but a lot of the other things that I want to do, from speaking to coaching to just even really just helping creatives do what they do better.
Yeah,
because that's a big part of what I want to do, and there's a lot of different reasons why. The main is that I believe so strongly that creatives are the people who are going to change the world.
Yeah.
And the people who are changing the world.
Yeah,
they're the ones who are taking their emotions, their hurt, their pain, their experience, and they're making something from it. They're making something beautiful from it, something unique, something authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, those are the people I'm like, I want to help you guys do what you're doing so you can do what you're doing even better.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But, that takes, of course, working in myself first.
Yeah.
So I can't help other people if I'm not also helping myself.
Yeah. And you got to learn how to do that. I mean, that's research. I mean, that's what it is. You got to learn how to, what is it that those people need that they're not already getting? Yeah. That's what that comes to. It's like, and can you even do that?
Yeah. And that's like where the writing is so helpful, because there's so much information that passes through our minds. There's so much stuff that we see. And especially if you get on Instagram, you get on the search, you can get lost for an hour and some change. You're like, where'd time go?
Yeah.
Right? So like, writing for me also just helps me track all those different things. And it's also a resource. I'm like, if you don't if you don't write, not you personally, but like to people, out there, to the folks at home, right? Like, like if you don't write, find something to like put down all your thoughts, put down your ideas, because you have these bright moments throughout the day, and if you don't track those,
for real,
they're just out there.
For real.
So like, put it in a song. I don't know, like,
for real.
Draw it, like, make notes, do something.
Yeah. The craziest thing happened to me yesterday.
Yeah.
I used to make music in high school. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Craziest thing happened on my Instagram. I put on my Instagram like a week ago, hey, what do you guys want to see more from me? I got some replies, and then somebody who I didn't even follow was like, hey, do you guys gonna make any more music? I really missed the music video. I was like, what in the world? But yeah, that's true. There's all kinds of outlets that you can use to express yourself. And what's crazy is that I started as a music writer. Like, I started as a lyrical writer, and then it transitioned actually into the kind of writing that I do now. And like, I'm in the process of writing my first book. Like, I'm actually on that way to the first real book on transracial adoption, which is a huge blessing. And just to be on this journey is crazy. But like, again, if you don't start writing down your thoughts and emotions, like, how much stuff I'm using from things back then that it's now in this book. I started journaling when I went to college. I mean, I have 4 or 5 notebooks full of journal stuff. I wish I journaled more. Like, I forget to journal now, and I get mad at myself. But yeah, if you're not writing stuff down, you're even if you never did anything with them, like, that's for you. My journals are not really meant to like go public. Those are for me. Man, and that's a huge blessing.
Yeah, I mean, like, life is cumulative. Like the little things that happen to us, those are the things that add up and make who we are.
Exactly.
And, like, we're always thinking about like these big moments. At least for myself, right? Like, like these big moments, right? These big moments of like of marriage or buying our first whatever, paying off our student loans or whatever it is. Like, we think of these big moments and not like the little things that make those big moments up.
Exactly.
Like.
That's what
it's
journaling
the little
does.
things. And journaling, it adds up to something, even if it's just personal growth.
Yeah. And I love that.
Like, I mean, I was looking back the other day at some notes. I'm like, man, I really went through some stuff.
Yeah.
You know? But I look back and I was like, wow, I'm so thankful that I went through it because it's made me who I am now.
Exactly.
And I see where those things had come from.
Yeah.
You know, like put your stuff down, track that stuff.
And it's also great to see where you came from. You know, I remember, you know, going through this process when I was going through like the racial identity stuff at like 16, 17, 18. And now reading that stuff is so helpful for me to be like, oh, back then I thought like it would never get to a point to where I was happy.
Yeah.
I thought this was always just going to be the struggle.
Yeah.
And now here I am, and this is actually my life. This is actually, it actually gives me joy when somebody calls me and says, hey, I saw this thing and I have a lot of thoughts and I just don't know what to do with it. And I'm like, cool. This is what I can do.
And even with that, you can say to someone who's going through that now, hey, it gets better.
Exactly.
You can say, like, I was there. Like, you're not, you know, like you're not the only one. I was
For
there.
real.
It gets better.
And that's why I think that's why I'm so excited for my book, I think. Because I think a lot of, like, I'm keeping my book pretty condensed. Like, I'm talking like 130 pages max. So that, like, moms can read it, like, while they're chilling. And, like, you know, teenagers who are adopted can honestly just pick it up and be like, what is this, without feeling overwhelmed. And, like, that's one of the most exciting things about the book for me is, like, I know that there are other adopted kids going through this because I know them. Like, I have adult friends that have also been adopted who were like, yeah, that was me then, or that's me now. Because different ones of us go through that identity crisis at different times. And I'm really excited for that book to be something that can be used as a symbol of hope. And of love, and of, like, it could also be like adoption's in decline. Like, I think it would also be a good catalyst for, like, to get people more interested in that adoption process and what it would mean to actually enjoy cultural growth through adoption as well, because those kids need homes. There are kids who are sitting in the foster care system who need homes, white or black. And the more those white families are to actually adopt those kids, the more prepared they are, like, the better that child's life gets. And so I'm really excited for that journey.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, dude.
Like, that's dope stuff.
Yeah, dude. I'm excited now. I'm amped about it. Now I'm probably going to go home and write. But yeah, dude, anything you want to say before we close out?
Do good things, love people, and reach higher. So
boom.
Yeah.
Kalen Washington. We'll put his website down below, his Instagram handle, all that stuff. Definitely give him a follow. He's going to be releasing some cool stuff in the next couple of years, dude. I'm excited for it.
There's some stuff, man. There's some stuff
I'm excited for it.
I want to talk about. But
maybe I'll get you to collab and write with me sometime.
Hey, I'll be with it. I'll be with it. Like,
bet.
Yeah.
I'm with it, too. Well, thank you guys for watching. This was Our Place episode 8. Pretty crazy times. Episode 9 is next week with Curtis from Living Lawless and then Ryan Davis. So have a good night. We'll see you guys next week.